Hi there. I want to offer you up a meditation practice with this video. And I'm basically calling it, it's not as hard as you think. There's an old saying that's, if you can talk, you can sing. I don't believe that necessarily. And I have a teacher that says, if you can breathe, you can meditate. And I saw a great meme that said, if you can worry, you can meditate. Because it turns out worrying is a form of meditation. But what I want to offer today is just a simple practice using a few tools that are great to anchor you into being present or into this idea of mindfulness. We're just going to use the breath. We're going to count the breath. We're going to label, and we're just going to sit. It's not going to be anything too terribly crazy. A lot of times I think that we have this idea, if we've attempted a meditation practice and we have a hard time maintaining it, is that there's often this idea that we feel like something should happen when we're meditating, like, some epiphanies or answers or ahas. And that's not always the case. I find that tends to happen when I'm not sitting. Like, it makes me more aware when that inspiration comes or when that answer comes. So there's that thing. And then there's also this idea that we feel like we suck at it because we can't stop thinking or we can't turn off the brain. Well, those two things, turning off the brain and stop thinking, those are only going to happen at a very specific moment in your life, and you won't be aware of it when it happens. Your brain stops working, essentially. Spoiler alert. So we let go of this idea when we take our seat to meditate, that this idea of an agenda or an expectation, and this idea that we could suck at it. Because the thing about a meditation practice is your practice is in the continuing to start over and beginning again each time, whether that's 100 times within a 5-minute time span, which might be kind of modest, or if it's just like this idea that it's one more thing that we have to stress about. So I want to try to make this as stress-free as possible. So first we want to find a comfortable seat. You don't have to sit cross-legged on your floor. If you are good with that, awesome, rock on with that. If you are sitting on the floor, maybe you sit up on like a pillow or a cushion, and maybe you have your back against a wall or back of a chair or something to support you in that posture. Because if you start to kind of cave in, you're going to hate this even more. But I think that sitting in a chair is perfectly fine. To sit in your chair, both feet on the floor, palms down on your thighs. So just to make you feel a little bit more grounded. So let's go ahead and do that first. So find your seat, whether it's cross-legged or in a chair. And we're just going to do some stuff in the body first. So take your shoulders up to your ears and just drop them down. Let's do that 3 times. An exaggerated shrug and an exaggerated drop. Let's do it one more time. And tip your ear over to your shoulder. It doesn't matter which one. We're not trying to really achieve anything here. Try to keep those shoulders down. We're not trying to then turn your chin towards your chest. We're not trying to achieve anything in the posture here either. We're just trying to let go of a little bit of tension in neck and shoulders, which can sometimes be a little distracting in a meditation practice. Take it over to the other side, by the way. And your chin down towards your shoulder, your chest. And just bring your head to the center. Lift up your head. Let's roll the shoulders back a couple of times. Roll them forward. Ooh, that popped. I don't know if y'all could hear that. Then also in the face. So maybe raise the eyebrows up, like really surprised. And let them drop down. Open the jaw. Maybe move it side to side. Very easy to clench in the jaw, like any time of the day. We used to only do that at night. Now, with mask wearing, we do it all the time. Then as you find the seat, take a deep breath in, as deep as you can, filling up your belly, filling up your chest. Then just open your mouth. Let's form that next one a little bit more. Inhale to a 3 count. Then exhale to a 3 count. Inhale to a 4 count. Exhale to a 4 count. And one more time. Inhale to a 5 count. Exhale to a 5 count. So we're going to use breath as our focal point for the meditation today, but we're not trying to make the breath a particular way. We're not making it happen at a particular duration, not having a sound, a depth, any of that stuff. We're just going to breathe. So just sitting here for about a minute or two, we're just going to see where the breath kind of is in the body. It's a good idea to, close your eyes when you do this. You could also place one hand maybe on your heart, one hand on your belly. And as you inhale and exhale, you can see if there's any movement there. Does it feel like your body's lifting and expanding on the inhale, dropping on the exhale? And then can you be aware of the breath anywhere else in the body? I find it interesting if you're sitting with your back against something to feel like those back lungs, back ribs kind of press into that chair. Like, oh, breath moves back there. And again, we're just letting the breath be in its natural rhythm here. Not trying to hit so many breaths a minute or make it sound like anything. Just breathing. And then the first technique I want to share with you, we're going to kind of chop them up and then we'll put them together, is a counting backwards technique. And the way it's going to work is we're going to count from 50 to 0. And that sounds easy peasy. Goal is not to get to the 0 necessarily. It's to be aware that we're counting down. And what may tend to happen as you start it is you'll be like 50, 49. Ooh, the 49ers, those were my dad's favorite football team. Oh, wait. So when you get lost, you begin again. So you start back at 50. So you start that counting down. And maybe you get to 30. And, oh, did I reply to that text? Start back at that 50. So every time you get lost or distracted, start over. So we're going to count from 50 on each breath. Doesn't matter whether you start with the inhale or the exhale. Then when you get to 20, try to only count on the exhale to 0. So we're going to try that. I'm going to set a timer for, we'll just try it for 2 minutes. So find that seat. If you need to, do that. Eyes closed or partially closed, maybe looking down at something. Inhale. On that exhale, 50. On the inhale, 49. Exhale, 48, and so on. Remembering distracted or losing count, come back to 50. Remembering our intention is not necessarily to get to that 0, but to stay focused on just that task of counting. Take a deep breath in. And And as you're ready, you can open your eyes. How'd you do? Now, it sounds like it's going to be such a simple practice, but I swear I could probably count on two hands how many times I've actually made it to 0. But again, your practice is continuing to start over. Because what you're doing is you're training your mind to be present with one thing. Because typically, our brains are like our cell phones, like 50 notifications, 100 tabs open. And we're trying to just be on one thing. So you keep starting over. So what happens when you get to 0? Well, you could start over. Or this could be just a great little intro to a practice, if not a practice in and of itself. What we're going to do today is we're going to then just, after we've done that count, if we've hit that 0, we're just going to notice the breath. We're not going to attach anything to the breath. There are lots of practices that have you, inhale love, exhale gratitude. And that's a great practice. That's not what we're doing today, though. We are just going to sit with that breath. And as you're sitting there, you no longer have that counting to focus on. What do? You're just noticing the breath. Again, not trying to change it in any kind of way, not comparing it to, oh, yesterday my breath was much better. You're just breathing. And sometimes though we need a little help with that. So you could be sitting there and you could inhale, exhale, mentally saying that to yourself. In, out. Something like that. Again, we're going to set the timer for 2 minutes and we're just going to sit with our breath. And the same principle that if something comes up in your brain, oh, I have to do this, or oh, a memory, inhale, exhale. You could even say, I inhale, I exhale, just until you get back in touch with that breath. All right, so 2 minutes again. Eyes closed or halfway closed, looking down. Deep breath in. That one might have been a little more challenging for some, easier for others. I wanted to say too about this that if you feel the need to move in your practice, you should definitely do that. We're not trying to make your meditation a test of endurance. So if you're sitting and you're like, oh, my ear itches, then just scratch your ear. But just kind of try to keep the moves as small and as calm as possible. There's no need to be like, oh, I must scratch. So if you need to move, move. If you need to open the eyes for a second. noises are going to happen in your world. I've got a clock ticking behind me, and I've got a bird singing a really lovely song outside. Because the idea is that you're not trying to create the perfect environment either, because that's never going to happen. So you're trying to integrate all of these things into your meditation. Now, the last technique that we're going to add on is just a labeling practice, and a very general labeling, because as I stated earlier, thoughts are going to come up. Your brain's active, and we're going to just label what's happened and move on. So as you're sitting there, some labels that you would use would be thinking, or feeling, or memory, or idea, and then just kind of keep moving. Don't try to fixate on that, unless, if you really need to know it, it will continue to come back to you. So as you're sitting here, maybe it's like, oh, feeling. But then you don't need to dive into that feeling. Like, well, what am I feeling? I'm feeling bored. I'm feeling achy. I'm feeling anxious. No, having a feeling. Then going back into breathing. So what we're going to do is we'll just do this for a minute. We're going to close the eyes, and we're just going to have a free-for-all in the mind here. So as you close your eyes, that slideshow is going to start flying across the mindscape here. And it's like, okay, feeling, idea, feeling, etc. Taking a deep breath in. All right, so now we're going to put all of those together. We're going to start with that counting from 50 to 0. Remember, from 50 to 20, you're counting every breath. Exhale 50, inhale 49, etc. Then when you get to 20, you're only counting out on that exhale. And then hopefully by the time we get to that 0, well, then you're just sitting, breathing. I breathe in, I breathe out, inhale, exhale, etc. And then this is where the labeling will come in handy, because you'll sit, maybe you're not saying anything, you're just breathing. But then here comes that little chirp, feeling. Or to make it even simpler, your labels could be breathing, not breathing. As you sit there, breathing, breathing. Oh, don't forget to drop that in the mail. Not breathing, breathing, breathing. Oh, remember that time? Not breathing, breathing. So that could be your labeling. So we're going to go for a record here. Timer for 5 minutes. Get your posture, any little bit of movements that you need to do. Maybe an exhale or two out. Same idea, eyes closed, maybe half closed, looking down. Maybe eyes are open and you're staring at maybe you have a crystal or candle or something. If you need to move, move. You have a scratch, scratch. But we're just, again, keeping it calm, not big and dramatic. All right, I'll see you on the other side of 5 minutes. And taking a deep breath in, long breath out. As you're ready, opening your eyes. Not terribly hard, right? So that's a really good way to start or restart or kickstart a meditation practice. We did 5 minutes. We sat for 5 straight minutes, looking at the breath, labeling things that weren't the breath. 5 minutes is a very reasonable amount of time to dedicate to a meditation practice. And if you're like, I don't have 5 minutes, sweetie, you need to look at some stuff that you could maybe let go of. But if you can't do 5, 3. And again, any of those are great practices. But what this does is, you know, if you're like, well, I didn't notice anything, we're developing our mental fitness here. It's like, you know, you can't just run once a week and expect that to give you all the benefits, as much as I've tried that. You don't just brush your teeth once a month. It's a daily habit. So these 5 minutes are, you know, pretty easy to find. Maybe when you get up in the morning, you sit on the edge of the bed, you set your timer on your phone, 5 minutes. You know, maybe on your lunch hour or when you get home from work. Don't get too caught up in the time. Get first maybe into the groove of doing it every day. Then maybe you set the time of like, okay, I'm gonna do it every morning. And then the benefits are it's amazing how quick they happen. You just become so much more discerning of what's going on in this head and like the thoughts that you want to attach something to and the ones that you don't. So I hope that you enjoyed this, and I hope that it serves you well. Refer to this time and time again. And I wish you nothing but the great success in this. So thank you so much for joining me today.